The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. High Chancellor Zareth stood at the center podium, his four elongated fingers gripping the obsidian railing as he surveyed the empty seats where the human delegation had sat only hours before. 12 chairs. 12 empty chairs, each one a monument to a decision the council had made with supreme confidence and catastrophic miscalculation. They simply left? Ambassador Tyrene of the Vorkai Collective whispered from his seat, his bioluminescent skin flickering an anxious violet. Quietly, confirmed Councillor Merath, her insectoid mandibles clicking softly. No ultimatum. No theatrics. Admiral Voss submitted the formal withdrawal notice at 0300 station time. Standard diplomatic language. Perfectly polite. That was what disturbed Zareth most. No anger. No threats. No dramatic last words delivered from a podium. Just a single document, immaculately formatted, bearing the seal of the Terran Interstellar Authority, signed in Admiral Darian Voss's steady hand, and then silence. 3 weeks earlier, the Council had voted to impose the Tariff Doctrine, a sweeping restructuring of interstellar trade routes that effectively pushed human shipping lanes into the outer dead zones. The reasoning had seemed sound at the time. The Vorkai needed the central corridors for their expansion. The Selhari Dominion had lobbied aggressively. The Murenkai had abstained, as always, offering nothing useful. And the humans? They had raised a single objection. Admiral Darian Voss, a compact human woman with close-cropped gray hair and eyes the color of a storm system, had stood before the full council chamber and spoken for exactly 4 minutes. She did not raise her voice. She did not pound the podium. She simply presented 3 economic models, 2 historical precedents, and 1 quiet observation. If this doctrine passes, she had said, humanity will need to reassess the value of its contributions to collective council infrastructure. We will, of course, honor all existing obligations. But we will have to redirect our resources accordingly. Zareth had dismissed it as posturing. Every species postured. He had been wrong. Within 72 hours of the withdrawal notice, the first cracks appeared. The Kareth Station, humanity's gift to the Council, built at staggering human expense, maintained by human engineers, running on human-designed atmospheric processors, began experiencing what the technical team delicately called optimization gaps. The human technicians had departed with Admiral Voss. Their replacements, hastily assembled from 3 other species, discovered that the manuals were thorough, the systems were documented, and absolutely nothing worked the way they expected. It turned out that human engineering had a philosophy baked into every circuit: redundancy, improvisation tolerance, and what one recovered document called graceful degradation, the ability for systems to fail slowly and predictably rather than catastrophically. The replacement teams, trained on Vorkai precision systems where every component performed exactly one function perfectly, kept triggering cascades. By day 4, atmospheric recycling on decks 7 through 19 was running at 60%. By day 6, the Council's primary long-range communication array, which used a human-developed quantum folding technique that no other species had fully replicated, went dark. We still have the Selhari Relay Network, Councillor Merath pointed out during the emergency session. The Selhari Relay Network, Ambassador Tyrene replied carefully, has a 14-hour transmission delay and a packet loss rate of 30%. Silence fell over the chamber. 30%? Zareth repeated. The humans, Tyrene said, with the particular tone of someone delivering news they personally found mortifying, had been quietly compensating for its deficiencies for 11 years. Apparently they rebuilt the error correction protocols 6 times without telling anyone because they found the original design, and I am quoting the recovered engineering notes here, charming but structurally optimistic. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of the Vorkai expansion zone, the very corridors the Tariff Doctrine had been designed to open, supply chains began to fracture. It emerged, slowly and then all at once, that human cargo vessels had been quietly performing a secondary function throughout the central lanes. Not officially. Not contractually. Simply because, as one recovered communication log put it, the Selhari freighters keep missing the Tyran 4 window and somebody has to make sure the colony gets its medical resupply. Tyran 4 was not a human colony. Humans had been running unofficial mercy routes, supplementing, patching, quietly filling the gaps in council logistics, because they found it uncomfortable to watch supply chains fail when they had available ships. 3 colonies ran short on critical medications within the first 10 days. 2 Vorkai mining installations missed their extraction windows because the navigational beacon calibration service, contracted to a human firm that had quietly become the de facto standard for deep space navigation across 11 systems, was no longer available. And then there was the matter of the Murenkai Accord. High Chancellor Zareth had not slept in 36 hours when the Murenkai ambassador requested an urgent private audience. Ambassador Drelek was an ancient being, silver-scaled and slow-moving, who communicated through a translation device so old it occasionally produced words in languages that no longer existed. He settled across from Zareth in the private council chamber and was quiet for a long moment. The Murenkai, Drelek finally said, have maintained neutrality in council affairs for 400 years. Yes, said Zareth cautiously. We have done so, Drelek continued, because neutrality was strategically optimal. The Council's internal balances were such that intervention was never necessary to preserve stability. Zareth waited. Admiral Voss came to see me before she left, Drelek said. She brought a gift. A bottle of something called bourbon. We spoke for several hours. A long pause. She is a very patient person, Chancellor. Very methodical. What did she say? She did not threaten. She did not ask for anything. Drelek's translation device hummed. She simply explained, in considerable detail, exactly what would happen if humanity withdrew from Council infrastructure support. And then she left the bourbon and wished me well. Zareth closed his eyes. She told you everything that would fail. She told me everything that has failed, Drelek corrected gently. And several things that have not failed yet but will within the next 30 days if nothing changes. She gave me a list. He produced a data chip and set it on the table. It is very thorough. Admiral Darian Voss received the Council's formal communication request from the bridge of the TAS Resolute, parked in comfortable orbit around the human colony world of New Carthage, where she had been overseeing a very productive series of bilateral trade meetings with species who had quietly noted humanity's newly available shipping capacity and found it interesting. She read the request twice. Then she called her aide, Lieutenant Kerrigan, and asked him to schedule a response for the following morning. Not immediately, Admiral? Tomorrow morning, Voss repeated. She looked out at the curve of New Carthage's northern continent, its oceans the color of hammered copper in the local sun. They voted in 20 minutes. We can take 24 hours. She did respond, in the end, professionally, promptly, and without a single word of triumph. The message was pure logistics. A framework for renegotiation. A proposed timeline. A list of human conditions, reasonable, specific, and non-negotiable, for resumed infrastructure support. At the bottom, a single line. We have no interest in watching anyone suffer. We would like to return to working together. The attached terms make that possible. We await your consideration. It was signed, as always, in Admiral Darian Voss's steady hand. The Council ratified the new terms in an emergency session that lasted 6 hours. The Tariff Doctrine was quietly shelved. The Vorkai expansion corridors were restructured. Human shipping lanes were restored, and, in the renegotiated framework, formally recognized as critical Council infrastructure for the first time, a legal designation that came with protections the humans had never previously bothered to request. When the first human engineering team returned to Kareth Station, they found their Vorkai counterparts waiting for them, not with resentment, but with a list of questions about the atmospheric processors and an expression, across every face, of profound professional humility. The lead human engineer, a lanky young man named Specialist Okafor, looked at the list and smiled. "Okay," he said, pulling up a diagnostic interface. "Let's start from the beginning." In the Grand Chamber, High Chancellor Zareth stood once more at the central podium. The 12 human seats were filled again. Admiral Voss sat in the front row, straight-backed, hands folded, watching him with the polite attention of someone who had already won and felt no particular need to celebrate. Zareth had governed the Galactic Council for 30 years. He had navigated wars, famines, the collapse of the Third Selhari Empire, and the Murenkai Schism. He had never, in 30 years, felt quite so thoroughly outmaneuvered by someone who had never once raised their voice. He cleared his throat. "The Council recognizes the Terran delegation," he said, "and welcomes their return." Admiral Voss inclined her head, precisely 1 degree. "Thank you, Chancellor," she said. "It's good to be back." She did not smile. She didn't need to. Humanity hadn't threatened. Hadn't raged. Hadn't demanded. They had simply stopped holding things together and waited, with infinite patience, for everyone else to notice what that meant. They always noticed.